early morning fascination. I could tell you about it, but I really think it's better to show you. So, despite this being a little bit different today, I'm going to invite us all to be brave, to be open to these next few moments, and I promise you that nothing's bad is going to happen. I really hope nobody's going to break an ankle. So, if everyone would stand up and then come on forward, I just want us to gather right here. Put yourself parallel to the pews, and don't be too far apart, but not too close together that you feel uncomfortable. And then I'm going to need an assistant. Nick, can you be my assistant? All right, seeing as you're like coming up in the back. I promise you nothing bad is going to happen. All right, can y'all get in a line together? Maybe you need to scoot over a little bit. Come on, everybody in here. I'm going to go behind you. Okay, close your eyes. Stay facing that way. Close your eyes. Nick, come on over here. And then if Nick comes over here, you guys maybe can scoot down to your left a little bit. And close your eyes. Look at that lady on YouTube. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed. While you're keeping your eyes closed, you can be praying for courage and bravery and be around there. No peeking. Cynthia, can you scoot over just a little bit? Or you're gonna have to catch this one over here. Come on up here, sir. We welcome you. All right, Cynthia, we're scooting you over towards Bernie. Couple more steps. Come on up here. We got a new friend that just joined us. Welcome, I'm Pastor Jule. Oh, yeah. Good to see you. Come on in. Oh, no, I'm getting caught. Come on in here. Ah. All right, everybody, close your eyes. Woo! All right. Come on, Nick, bring them in together. We got to bring in this catch, if we can. You can open your eyes and see what in the world we're trying to do. We're trying to get you in this net. Oh. Kind of crazy. Okay, so that was not the best example, but you can go back to your seat. The idea is, it's a net, right? Okay. Yeah. So how many of you fish with a net? Obviously, Nick and I do not normally. Anybody fish with a net? No. Well, that was the fascination. When I was a kid, in the early mornings in the summer, we would go out. My dad and his brother would have this huge net, and they would go walk into Lake Michigan, and they would try to scoop up fish. All right, so anything we learned from net fishing? Nobody's been net fishing before, right? No. Okay. All right. Anything other than Nick and I weren't the best at net fishing? Maybe net fishing takes a little practice. That's a good lesson, right? How about when you were standing here, what did it feel like? A little scary? Like, what in the world is going on? Especially if you just walked in. You're like, what in the world is going on? Who are these crazy people? Why am I here? We're glad you're here. Anyway. Well, I think one big thing we learned is that there is a big difference in fishing with the net and fishing with one of these, right? All right, who's a fisher person around here? Bernie, you go fish. You used to go fishing, didn't you? All right, look at this. If we're fishing with one of these, it's a little different, right? Woo! Okay, a little crazy. Because, well, fishing with a pole is a solitary experience, right? Even if you're in a boat with other people, one person can hold the pole. Hopefully somebody's going to help if you do get a big old fish, right? So I just need to make sure I don't get my finger caught, and this is quite the hook. So, very different experience. Fishing with a net requires at least 2 people. And it probably it would have been helpful if we had had a third behind us helping out. You know, if we would have been really forceful, we would just grab you up in that net, right? But we didn't do that. So, that was what we did in the summer, in the mornings. My dad and his brother would get this big net and go out net fishing. That is what is going on in our gospel reading for today. Jesus is finding these men who have been out using these huge nets, trying to catch fish as a profession, trying to provide for their families, and it is from that endeavor in which he discovers them, and then he calls his first disciples, at least according to the way we hear of it in the Gospel of Matthew. So when we fish from a net, when we fish from a pole with a hook, you really should check out this hook. It's huge. I had to put tape on it because I knew I would end up having it in my ear otherwise. When we fish with a pole, with a hook, something's going to get hurt. There's going to be a worm that's going to be sacrificed. You know this if you're a fisher person, if you ever had to put that worm. That's why a lot of people don't like to go fishing. They don't want to touch the worms, right? And put it on the hook. But when you fish with a pole and a hook, something's going to get hurt. A worm is going to get sacrificed. A fish is going to be snagged. I have seen sometimes fish get that hook snagged in their mouth, but I've seen it in their eye, seen it in their gill, and I've even seen it in their tail. Depending on if the fish actually bites the bait, or the hook just happens to catch something as it's swimming by. So if we are seasoned fishers, we're heading on out the door, we know that certain hooks catch certain fish in certain waters, and we even know the right time to go fishing. So smelt, this small school of fish that my dad and his brother sought to catch early mornings in the summer, they are best netted. Now with a net like this, it's way too big because smelt are hardly even that big. We need a much smaller net woven together. Some fish go for worms that are hanging off a hook. Others are better attracted with fancy lures. I didn't have any of those to show you today, but I bet you some of you have those at home. And then the kind of predatory fish, they're best caught actually with other small fish. Those who fish know this. They know what's biting, where, and when, and how, and best to bring them on home. That actually reminds me a lot of the fishing for people, the discipling efforts of the Apostle Paul. He himself reflected upon his process of fishing for people, of bringing in folks, in his first letter to the Corinthians. Because he was clear that the kernel of God's good news was love. And he was so committed to sharing that kernel of love. For the sake of love, he modified how he communicated with a slew of people as he traveled all over the known world. So that love would be the way that those whom he communicated with would begin to walk. Even if love looked, really different in a person in Corinth than it did in a person in Jerusalem. As we think about our learnings regarding fishing, because, that's the charge. Jesus is giving his disciples, those of us who say we want to be followers, he's giving us the charge to fish for people. So one of the important things to know about this part of the Gospel of Matthew is that Jesus is a very brave fisher. We know this because he emerges from the wilderness and he moves his home from Nazareth, which is in the lower Galilee. It's a detached little hamlet in the lower Galilee, and he moves himself willingly, bravely, to the cosmopolitan crossroads of Capernaum, which is in the upper Galilee, which is where the tetrarch, or the Jewish-born Roman-appointed Galilean governor of Jesus' adulthood, Herod Antipas, just had the man who baptized Jesus thrown in jail. Which means Jesus runs not from trouble, but to it. He is definitely calling his disciples to be brave. He sets up camp in Capernaum to begin embodying this countercultural way. And he invites people. He says, follow me and fish to. That's why he found those fishing with nets. Because think of it, the pole fishing act itself. All right, who's done this before? Anybody fish? Okay, I'm not going to you have to go like this. It's a very aggressive action if you think of it, right? I love it because I'm not going to knock the candle over, I hope. But I love that sound of the snap of the pole. Everybody remember that? That zing of the line as it goes out over the water, and then that plunk as the hook hits the water. I love that. But honestly, that is a really aggressive way to fish. If for a moment you'd be willing to just stay in your seats and pretend that you are the net that is being cast to bring in the catch, just let your arms extend side to side. See if we can do this. Pretend that you are the net, kind of like the one we all, were using. And just move your arms forward at shoulder height. And now gather in those fish. Bring your palms back towards your heart. Practice that movement a few times, as if you are the net. Out. I'm sure this is a yoga pose. What is it called? I don't know. But this is a very different way to fish for people, isn't it? A very different way. It feels different. It feels graceful. Y'all look beautiful doing that. It's wide. And it's just like this ingathering of whatever is before us, right? It's beautiful. It goes a long way, I think, that it goes from and comes to our heart as well. Because imagine fishing for people like that. Jesus is intending this to be the way that we fish for people, not with hooks, but nets. He knew that those folks that he was calling were going to be great fishers for people if they stuck to the principles of net fishing. Like if Peter, Andrew, James, and John, and any who would follow the motion thereafter of fishing for people, if they would do that in the same way that they fished with nets for fish. If they would remember that it was a process to be done in pairs or a larger group. Like in the summer when my dad and his brother were the ones in the water, but the rest of us, the whole neighborhood was on the beach cheering them along. The women were telling them what to do, where to go. And the kids were ready to pick out the little smelt. And then our moms would take the catch and make this bountiful feast for us. It was awesome. It wasn't a one person out there alone, which I know a lot of people like to fish that way. But that's not the best way to be fishing for people. If those sent by Jesus to fish for people could remember that it's a process filled with great grace from the very center of the heart of the divine, well, there would be a whole lot less wounding along the way, wouldn't there? Because there would be no hooks to getting people to love God, no fears of sharp-edged weapons that the Christian tradition too often has incorporated. No creature would be sacrificed in the name of gain. No worms, no earth, nor women, no children, no men. Gathering people for God might feel less violent, like that snap, and more like this just great big hug. When those fishing for people use what they have learned in the process of net fishing, we would welcome whatever turns up before us, whoever turns up before us. We're glad you're here today. We would seek to find others' contributions to the whole, especially if we trusted that God put out the net where God wanted it, so that God could bring in who God wanted. This is really a very curious activity for Jesus to choose as his initial disciples those who were skilled, excellent Christian folks who would use their principles of net fishing. But it's a process in which we learn how to be and to spread and to share love each and every day. Net fishing together with people. We don't even need the pole. As we move into the ministries ahead of us for 2023, may we always remember the difference. Thank you. Fishing for people, we will reach out in grace for God together. In the name of the one, giving, transforming, and sustaining life. Amen. So in this silence now, let us continue to hear God's word.